There's been a lot of talk lately in the dairy industry about the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, i.e. PETA, some of the conduct they've done, some of the actions they're taking. Let's take a closer look. One might forgive PETA for misunderstanding the dairy industry. They don't work in the dairy industry on a daily basis. They don't have first-hand knowledge, but they sure like to act as if they do. A great example of this is when Gillette Emperor Smurf made a world record and a Guinness record for lifetime production, and PETA decided to tag Gillette Holsteins in Ontario, Canada for their treatment of this cow. What they didn't realize is this cow has actually probably had the most prime care in her life. She gets optimum care, results in optimum production. But PETA, not understanding how that works, thinks that the cow has been abused and should be out on pasture, resting in green meadows. Well, in reality, her actual care is far better than that. She gets all she can eat, plenty of exercise, plenty of attention. So PETA, you don't know jack. This reminds me of a movie I watch with my children named Bee Movie. In the movie, Barry B. Benson, the bumblebee in question, discovers that after going through school and having to complete college, he now has to choose a career that he'll have for the rest of his life until the day he dies. Not ready to make such a drastic decision, Barry decides that he's going to go out and search outside the hive and discover what the real world is like. In his travels, he comes across a florist named Vanessa, and they strike it up. And Vanessa saves his life, and so Barry decides to break bee rule number 1, which is don't talk to humans, and he shares with her all the life of bees. What he also discovers in talking with Vanessa is humans eat honey, and they've been exploiting bees for their honey for years. Barry is devastated and outraged, so he decides to launch a class action lawsuit to rectify this wrong. Well, he ultimately wins this case, but he doesn't understand the ramifications of such actions. Sure, humans can't have honey anymore, but then there's also the ramifications for the bees, the ramifications on the ecosystem, and ultimately on the food supply for humans. And the whole movie comes to a point where it's going to all collapse. Fortunately, Barry comes and saves the day and ultimately rectifies the actions he took, and the bees are able to go back to the lifestyle that they love so much. At the end of the movie, they actually show a dairy cow talking to Barry about how he can stand up for their rights too. This gets me thinking about PETA again and just how they believe that they're standing up for the rights, but not understanding that what their actions are doing to the rest of society and the ecosystem. But sure, they're standing up for the rights of animals everywhere. But ultimately, PETA, these are incorrect ideas. So hey PETA, you don't know jack. What really has PETA in the news in the dairy industry right now is their recent video from Hickory, North Carolina, depicting a bunch of cows in horrific deep manure. The shots are devastating. Anybody, whether you're a dairy farmer or not, would see these images, and first initial reaction is those poor cattle. But Dairy Carrie Mess, who is a strong ag advocate, looked a little deeper and watched the video twice, and while she fully acknowledges that she does not know the exact circumstances at this Hickory, North Carolina farm, by watching the video she points out some many key aspects. First, when you see the cows and you look at them, they're cock deep in manure. Yet, if you look at their tails and their bodies, there isn't any manure anywhere. Any farmer who has worked with cattle long enough knows that cows like to use their tail to swat at the flies. Their tail gets covered in the manure, and it would be all over her. So certainly there's questions about whether these cows were actually in this area for long, or whether this was a staged shot. PETA found her blog so threatening that they sent her a cease and desist letter, telling her that she has to retract her comments, pull everything back, and apologize to them publicly because they've been attacked and feel hurt. These are kind of funny actions coming from PETA, since that's the exact tactics they use on everyone. Though You never hear them apologizing or retracting their comments. It's actually their general formula. They find some bad conditions, or maybe in some cases, create these conditions or enable these conditions, link them to a big national brand or a large company, and then try to give them bad publicity in order to elicit greater contributions to their organization. Sure, they may get some more funding from certain pockets, but what they don't understand is that they're attacking perfectly hard-working, good people who care for their animals very much, and they're defaming them. Hey PETA, you don't know jack. I find it interesting that PETA has been able to operate this way for so long. In the past, they've been connected to organizations like the Animal Liberation Front, an FBI-designated terrorist organization. They've been involved in financing this organization, providing individuals to help support the organization, as well as interns, and they've also been included or implicated in creating awareness and publicity for this organization. One witness interviewed by the FBI actually went as far to say that the organization PETA was founded by ALF. This is certainly not an organization that you would want to be connected to when your main care is the well-being and treatment of animals. Hey PETA, you don't know jack. In fact, it's really interesting that an organization that's committed to the well-being of animals, like PETA, actually is responsible for over 97% of the animals they bring in dying. Out of 760 dogs impounded in 2011, PETA killed 713 and arranged for 19 to be adopted, farmed out another 36 to other shelters. As for cats, they impounded 1,211, euthanized 1,198, and transferred out 8 to other organizations, and ultimately found homes for 5. PETA also took in 58 other companion animals, including rabbits, and it killed 54 of them. These figures don't reflect well on an organization with a $30 million budget dedicated to the well-being of animals. Hey PETA, you don't know jack. Well, certainly not all dairy operations are perfect, and there's not perfect animal care all the time. But 99% of the individuals involved in the care of dairy cattle do very much consider them part of the family. They take great care of them, and they treat them as if they're own children. Actually, it makes good business sense. Animals that are well fed, well cared for, produce more milk over their lifetime, have more progeny, are more profitable. Similar to how most Fortune 500 companies know that the better you treat your employees, the better they perform for your organization, the same is true when it comes to dairy cattle. Organizations like PETA seek to sensationalize these stories. They want to earn more funding, gain more support, and have more awareness. What they don't realize is who they're hurting by doing this. Or, the question is, do they even care? When they go and conduct themselves, such as these practices we've demonstrated here today, they are hurting individuals in the dairy industry, not because they have done anything wrong, but because PETA wants to justify their existence. I find this very interesting for an organization with the words ethical in their title, when you consider that these are not ethical practices. It needs to start looking at themselves and saying, are we conducting ourselves as an ideal organization? Otherwise, PETA, you don't know jack.